Most people look at Arden Cho today and see confidence, success, and a global fan base that treats her like a hero. But before any of that existed, she carried a secret she never expected to admit publicly. The kind of truth most people bury deep. She once looked in the mirror and wished she didn't look Asian. She wished for blue eyes, blonde hair, and a face that matched the beauty ideals she saw everywhere except in her own reflection. For years, she felt like the world around her made it impossible to love who she was. What she didn't know then is that this painful self-doubt would one day collide with the biggest role of her life, in a way that felt almost too close to the truth. And the connection between her childhood and the character she voices in K-pop Demon Hunters turned out to be more revealing and more emotional than anyone expected. But her story didn't begin with fame. It started in a place where being different meant surviving, not thriving. And the real journey is far more complicated than what most fans know. Arden's life began in Texas, the eldest daughter of Korean immigrant parents trying to build stability in a world that didn't always welcome them. She grew up doing everything she could to fit into American culture, hoping to blend in enough to avoid the stares, the whispers, and the questions about where she was really from. She felt American down to her bones, but for many people around her, that wasn't enough. When she walked into school, she already sensed she was different before anyone said a word. Kids don't need explanations, they pick up everything. And the beauty around her never looked like her. Posters, magazines, the popular girls everyone admired, none of them had her features. She didn't see actresses on TV who looked like her. So, like many kids who feel boxed out, she started to believe something was wrong with her. She's spoken openly about those years, describing times when she hated the reflection staring back at her. She didn't understand why she couldn't have the traits everyone else seemed to celebrate. All she wanted was to disappear into the background and not feel like her face was something that had to be explained. But inside all those moments of insecurity, something else was forming. A resilience she wouldn't recognize until much later. And soon, Hollywood would push her even more deeply into the same identity questions she wrestled with as a kid. Yet even then, the hardest part wasn't over. The world teaches children what is considered beautiful, even if no one says it out loud. For Arden, the message came through every hallway, every commercial, every magazine cover. Beauty had a blueprint, and she didn't match it. And the more she looked around, the more isolated she felt. There were rumors online, unverified but widely shared, that she dealt with kids mocking her, pulling their eyes back to imitate her features, or throwing comments she didn't know how to respond to. She never confirmed every story, but she has spoken often about bullying and racism that felt relentless. These things leave marks no one can see from the outside. She tried to fit in. She tried to blend in. She tried to shrink herself so she wouldn't become a target. But hiding never felt like a solution. She wanted to be accepted without pretending to be someone else. And yet every time she compared herself to the world around her, she felt like she was falling short. As she grew older, she began realizing that the issue wasn't her. It was a society that didn't offer any space for kids who looked like her to belong. But even when she finally left Texas and chased after her dreams, those old doubts followed her. And Hollywood, as she would soon learn, had its own brutal way of reminding her exactly where she stood. When Arden came into the entertainment industry, she expected competition. She expected rejection, but she didn't expect the typecasting, the stereotypes, or the quiet signals that told her certain roles were not meant for people who looked like her. There have been online discussions, always framed as speculation, that she was told to act more foreign in auditions, or that casting directors questioned whether audiences would understand an Asian lead. None of these accounts have been confirmed, but the stories echo experiences many Asian American performers have spoken about for years. What is confirmed is that early Hollywood didn't give her many chances. Roles were limited. Her identity was treated like a restriction instead of a strength. And every time she walked into a room, she felt what she had felt as a kid, that she had to fight twice as hard just to be seen. Still, she pushed through it. The industry wasn't built for her, but she wasn't planning to give up. And as she slowly built her body of work, the world began to notice. Her big break came with Teen Wolf, a show that gained a massive fandom and put her in front of millions of viewers around the world. It was a moment that should have been purely joyful, but what happened behind the scenes sparked conversations that would follow her for years. Arden's time on Teen Wolf was a milestone, giving her a platform she had never experienced before. But when the show announced a revival movie years later, fans immediately asked if she would return. The answer shocked people. Reports claimed she had been offered far less than her co-stars, rumors that circulated online long before she addressed them. When she eventually confirmed she turned down the role because she refused to accept pay that was significantly lower than the rest of the returning cast, it ignited a massive debate about pay inequality in Hollywood. People called her decision bold. Others called it risky. But most of all, it exposed how Asian American actors weren't valued the same way. She hadn't planned to become a spokesperson for fairness in the industry. She didn't want controversy. But overnight, she became a symbol of the fight for equal treatment, someone who refused to play small just to stay quiet. That moment changed her relationship with Hollywood. And by the time she received the script for K-Pop Demon Hunters, she was a different person. Someone who understood her value and recognized how important representation really was. But nothing could have prepared her for how deeply the story of that film would mirror her own life. When Arden opened the script for K-Pop Demon Hunters, something strange happened. It didn't feel like she was reading a character, it felt like she was reading parts of her own life. Rumi, the character she voices, is part human and part demon, caught between two worlds and forced to question where she belongs. Arden knew that feeling all too well. It was the first Hollywood animated film set in Korea, with Korean leads at the center of the story. That alone made it historic. For Arden, it was more than a role. It was a chance to give kids the representation she never had. But she also sensed something deeper. This movie was a risk. It wasn't the kind of project studios always jump to support, and she didn't want to let it slip through the cracks. So she visited the studio. She met the animators, the writers, the sound team, everyone. She wanted the project to succeed not just artistically, but culturally. She poured her heart into making sure Rumi felt real, grounded, and emotionally honest. It was a film about identity during a time when the world had become painfully divided, and none of them realized just how much that timing would matter, because when the movie finally launched, the world was dealing with something far heavier. K-Pop Demon Hunters debuted during a tense period in America. Immigration raids were increasing, families were being separated, anti-Asian hate crimes had surged in recent years. Across the country, protests raged over policies that targeted undocumented communities. For Arden, who had grown up watching immigrant families struggle to be accepted, it felt like watching history move backwards. It was in this environment that the movie launched on Netflix, and something incredible happened. Within 3 weeks, it pulled 33 million views. It hit the top 10 charts in 93 countries. And viewers didn't just watch it, they connected with it. Some Korean American fans told her they felt proud of their heritage for the first time. Others said the movie gave them the courage to embrace the parts of themselves they once tried to hide. Arden didn't expect any of this, but the world clearly needed a story that brought joy and hope at a moment when fear and division were everywhere. And as the movie skyrocketed, something else began. Rumors, speculation, whispers of a sequel, and fans were ready to explode at the first sign of confirmation. The movie didn't just succeed, it took over. 7 songs from the soundtrack hit the Billboard Hot 100. Fan art flooded social media. Cosplayers recreated scenes, and Korean tourism sites started reporting increased interest because viewers wanted to see the places that inspired the film. And then came the question everyone wanted answered. Is there going to be a sequel? Arden heard the same buzz everyone else did. Murmurs, she called them. Nothing official, no contracts, no announcements from Netflix or Sony, but she had heard enough to know people were talking. Fans couldn't get enough. They wanted Rumi back. They wanted more lore, more music, more of the world that made them feel seen and energized. But Arden didn't want to promise something she couldn't deliver, so she kept quiet, hopeful, but cautious. But for all the excitement, she was also worried about the future, because something new was rising in the entertainment industry, and it threatened everything she had worked for. Artificial intelligence, voice replication, performers being replaced by technology. She didn't hide her fears. She said she hoped humanity still valued real stories, real voices, real people. Because she had fought too hard to be seen, to let a machine erase the very thing that made her journey